DJT. DJT is just absolutely on a tear again. Look at this. This is absolutely insane. 21.5% yesterday, which was more than a 4x from the low of a few weeks ago. Now it's up another 20% in the pre-market. It is a complete euphoric momentum move right now that is really pricing in this potential for a Trump presidency. Pretty remarkable. Jolts again will be out at 7, so later than expected here. I was looking for a 5:30, but it actually comes out at 7. We're looking for 8 million on the job openings and labor turnover survey. We don't actually get that survey until 7 a.m. And the prior read was 8 million and 40. And as far as retail inventories, those are going to be out in just a minute, so we'll cover that and take it from there. So let's see here. Retail inventories coming out in just a moment, and let's see what that data is. About 10 seconds. We're looking for wholesale and retail inventories. We also get advanced goods trade balance, which is a little less valuable. Okay, there we go. Wholesale inventories come in a little smaller than expected, negative 0.1 versus the 0.1 expected. Retail inventories, we got 0.8 versus a 0.5, so a little larger than expected. So sort of a bit of a give and take there. Something that you're finding, and we'll kind of look at a market reaction there as well. Something that you're finding, though, is yields are just remarkable right now. I was just looking at the 1-year Treasury this morning, and the 1-year Treasury, if you wanted to lock in the 1-year Treasury, is yielding you about 4.3%, which is pretty remarkable. The 10 years at 4.31, which is basically the same thing. The 10 years popping up a little bit on some of these, or probably retail inventory numbers, probably because they're a bit indicative of suggesting that you're seeing maybe stores start to sort of build up inventory, if you will, in anticipation of a stronger holiday season. And so you're getting a little bit of hopium, if you will, that the economy will stay strong. But that DJT rally is pretty remarkable here in the pre-market. So if you're looking for something to watch in the pre-market, it's almost certainly a DJT here, up about 19% now, trying to hold on there to some of those gains. But a lot of this really, just as trading began about an hour and a half ago, this would be about at about 3, so about 4.5 hours ago. Over the last 4.5 hours, it's basically just been this slog directly up. And you're seeing a very close correlation between the movement in DJT with the movement in Bitcoin and the movement in NVIDIA. All of these seem to be somewhat, at least, correlated to each other in, at least to some extent, pricing in a bit of a Trump presidency. There are expectations that Bitcoin, if it breaks out of the range it's in right now, could end up breaking up to $125,000 per Bitcoin, essentially. It's going to say per share because I'm so used to talking about stocks, but then I had to catch myself. I'm like, wait a minute, Kevin, we're talking about Bitcoin here. So take a look at this. This was a great piece by The Market Ear. Let me pull this up on screen here. The Market Ear, and look what they show. Bitcoin's breakout bull. Bitcoin has traded in a wide range since March of this year. Money has been changing from weak to strong hands during this consolidation. We are once again getting close to a massive resistance area around 72,000. Note the golden cross. The golden cross is right here, the cross of the various different moving averages, your 15, your 200. Now, last time Bitcoin saw this sort of cross, we went from 35,000 to 70,000. We doubled the last time we had this sort of cross. You could see that golden cross right here. So DJT, massive rally this morning. Along with that DJT rally, you're getting this massive pump in Bitcoin, all in the face here of the golden cross. And you could see here some other commentary from the Marketeer on assuming a Trump victory. You could see a potential further price rise of about 4% when the presidential outcome is known, and maybe even as much as 10% a few more days thereafter. So very, very bullish Bitcoin here. But what I thought was really interesting is in their piece here on Bitcoin, they actually go as far as saying that even if Harris wins, Bitcoin might initially trade lower, but it'll still end 2024 at fresh highs around 75,000 is the expectation. So a lot of enthusiasm going into Bitcoin right now. But look at this. Trump Media Group here and Bitcoin. Look at this meteoric rise that you've really had in both the Trump Media Group and Bitcoin in just the last, few weeks here. It's kind of remarkable. In fact, if we zoom out on DJT, we could really see when the shareholder lockups tanked this stock to a low where insiders and early investors were able to sell, you really hit this rock bottom over here on about September 24th. September 24th, you had a rock bottom of $11.75 per share. And if you go to the predicted markets, the betting markets, just to sort of see, hey, like, where was Donald Trump around September 24th in terms of potentially winning presidency? Well, if you look at the polls, you find that Donald Trump only had about a 46% chance of winning per predicted polling, the betting market polls, right? Let's pull Newsom out of here because he doesn't really matter. There we go. Okay, so there you go. On the 26th, you were almost in the trough over here. I mean, the low. Harris was moving up. Trump was moving down. And then all of a sudden, come about the second week of October here, which Elon Musk spoke for the first time on stage with Trump right around here on that weekend of the 6th and the 7th. And then you started getting this volume pumped in potentially by this French trader into betting markets. And this explosion of volume was coincided with Harris's odds plummeting and Trump's odds skyrocketing. Which you don't just see it on Predicted, but you also saw this sort of movement on the poly market betting market, which some say, oh, it's skewed, it's Peter Thiel backed, it's misleading. Some people say, oh, it's crypto backed, so of course it's going to lean towards Trump. Some people say, look, the betting markets are people actually placing bets with their money, and so maybe they have a higher weight than some of the actual polling data that you get with, like, let's say, a Real Clear Politics betting average. I kind of like using both of them together. So what I like to do is I like to say, okay, well, if I see a change in direction in the betting markets, then am I also seeing a subsequent change in the betting markets for actual polling? And initially, we didn't see it, which suggested maybe there was just some sort of like market manipulation going on in the betting markets. Over here, Harris was still doing fine, 2 points ahead of Trump over here. But that lead just in the last few weeks really collapsed, and Trump has now pulled just 0.1% ahead, but you could see that little red edge right here. And so it's really this sort of impressive flip-flop that you've had for Trump over the last few days. Some people cite Kamala Harris's interviews with Fox News, maybe her stumbles over the border wall with Anderson Cooper. I know there were a lot of sort of memes on X about Harris getting booed at her Houston rally. I didn't actually think she was getting booed. If you actually watch the full context of the video, she was talking about things that she didn't like about her opponent, and people were booing that, and people were also booing protesters, not Harris. But then again, that doesn't make for good clickbait on social media or on X with certainty. But anyway, if you take a look at this rise here in Bitcoin and the Trump Media Group, very, very clearly tied together. But it's not just Bitcoin and the Trump Media Group that are tied together. It's also inflation expectations and Bitcoin. Now remember, there's something called the 10-year break-even inflation rate, and these really bottomed in September. Expectations that potentially we might see a recession, weak jobs data. This is why that JOLTS report is going to be so critical today. And even though a little off in terms of the timing of when it comes out, it'll actually come out in about 82 minutes. That will be some of our leading indicators, or one of the leading indicators this week for what we expect the Federal Reserve to bring to us, in less than 2 weeks here when the Federal Reserve holds their next meeting just after the election. Delayed actually 1 day and holding their press conference 1 day later because of the election. But what's remarkable is we've got the JOLTS report today, ADP employment tomorrow, the Challenger report on Thursday along with unemployment claims, and then of course we've got PCE data coming out. And then we have the actual labor report on Friday, and we're going to see what kind of adjustments are being made to some of this labor data. And some of the labor data has come in stronger. Inflation expectations have risen again as markets seem convinced that maybe there'll be a rise of inflation again rather than a decline of inflation. Which I personally am of the mindset that you're not going to see a rise of inflation again, that you're actually going to see a rise of the odds of deflation. And deflation is really bad because while it sounds nice that prices are going to go down, you have to ask yourself, are you prepared to take wage cuts at your job? This is something that when we work with financial advice clients who hire us over at stockhack.com, you can book a free intro call if you want, shameless plug. One of the things I talk about is, are you prepared that, in a year or two, one of you in, let's say, a dual income household could potentially face lower income or job loss? Have you considered that? What signs are you seeing at your business? What signs are you seeing at your corporation where you work that could potentially be indicative of this? And people are telling us, yeah, we're seeing a slowing in our industry. Other people in our office are already getting laid off, or people are getting hired at lower wages. And we are starting to see some of those signs that our income may come under pressure. So I think that's when you start getting wage deflation. All of a sudden you're like, well, crap, now prices of other stuff are going down, but now my wages are going down too. This is crazy. This sucks. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I think that's where, in part also, there are a lot of people who are enthusiastic about the potential for Trump to be supportive of the American worker, perhaps, deport illegal immigrants and be supportive of the American worker. Though, there are also flip side arguments that say when you deport people, you just shrink GDP in the country, you actually reduce growth, which Donald Trump, as he talked about in the Joe Rogan podcast, is a big fan of sustaining growth. Because one of the ways you could actually get yourself out of debt as a country is by growing GDP faster. See, there are three ways to deal with debt. There's austerity, think back to Greece where they stopped trash collection. There is austerity, so paying off your debt, constraining or restricting your expenses. There is inflating the debt away. And then, of course, there is growing the debt away, expanding GDP to where the debt is just relatively less important. It's sort of like if you have $10,000 of debt and your income is $15,000 a year, you look at that and you go, man, I have a lot of debt. If all of a sudden you get a great job, maybe you come work for Meet Kevin, and you're making $130,000, $200,000 a year. Well, all of a sudden that $10,000 of debt isn't that big of a deal anymore. That's just an example. That's an extreme example. But it's interesting. And this is sort of a mindset that Donald Trump does pay attention to as well. But while we wait sort of for this JOLTS data that comes out still in about 80 minutes, I do want to take a look at DJT because this rally in the pre-market, this skyrocketing of DJT, it's worth just looking at the financials for the company for a moment. I have not looked at the financials for the company in a while, so it's worth looking at them. What you'll actually see is ending in the June period, year over year, you actually have gross profit that declined. Their revenues are actually relatively low, their cost of revenues are actually relatively low. This mostly because once the software platform's up, there aren't that many expenses on a gross basis. These are like server hosting costs, maybe domain renewals, whatever, right? When you look at operating costs and expenses, though, this is where a lot of the money goes. So these figures are in thousands, which means you have $800 million of income coming in, but somehow to research and development, you are blowing almost $5 billion. Folks, in these are millions. I'm sorry, I miscounted these numbers. These are thousands and millions. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. I'm so used to looking at larger numbers when we look at these balance sheets. I apologize. So let's clarify this correctly. This is $800,000 of gross income. So okay, in a 3-month period, it's relatively low. Not a lot of income here. And then research and development in the same period, $5 million, roughly. We'll call it $5 mil in R&D. That's not horribly much. If you think about this, this could be a team of I don't know, 20 software engineers making $250K a piece, right? Just as an example, I'm being hyperbolic here just to simplify. You've got sales and marketing coming in at 1.1 million. That's pretty low. The G&A side is actually a lot more expensive. I do wonder where this is going. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this $13.4 million is probably, it'd be interesting. Is there a salary for Trump in here? And in fairness, there should be. I mean, the platform would be nothing without Donald Trump, right? But as a result of this, they are losing money, right? This is a company that is now losing $18.6 million in a 3-month period. Last 3-month period, they were losing $3.7 million. You know, after some of their interest income, which could come from cash deposits and yields on treasuries, they're still losing about $16 million a quarter. But that doesn't change the rally that you could see in the enthusiasm of the stock. You literally had this stock go, up a 4x here from basically a $2 billion company to a $9.4 billion company. So frankly, you've got a company that's losing $16 million a quarter, but you just created $7 billion. So, I mean, if you look at it from that point of view, you created 437 times the wealth that you spent just in share price appreciation. It's actually pretty remarkable. So a phenomenal movement here, and it really is pricing in a Trump win because, frankly, a lot of people think that if Donald Trump were to become president, there is a chance that Donald Trump would actually use the platform as his megaphone as president. So now all of a sudden you look at a company like DJT and you look and you say, okay, well, here's a company that doesn't make money. It loses money. It lost $16 million last quarter on net. In the last 6-month period, I don't even want to know what happened here. My Lord, what happened over here? How? What happened here? Was this like, this must have been like, there must have been some major one-time stock comp or something like that. Change in fair value of derivative liabilities. Okay, yeah, there could be some kind of stock options or something going on over here. But the loss in the last 6 months was $117 million. So again, it is a money-losing company. There's no question about that. It's not a company that's turned a profit, but there are a lot of people who believe and hope that this company could turn a profit. They've got about, what do we got here? This here is in thousands. So, I mean, you've got $343 million in cash sitting around at the company. What do we got in debts? You've got not much, $14 million in liabilities. So you've got a lot of cash earning interest at the company. That's probably from going public and just the incredible movement that you've seen in the share price here. Again, net movement here in the last 6 months in cash operating activities, negative 30 million. Yeah, change in fair value of derivative liabilities. Yeah, here you go. So you've taken some options or warrant hits, but you've potentially also written them down to a low because that was June 30th, which June 30th, the stock was trading for, it was trading for about the $28 range. $28 to $32. So you're almost twice that now, which is pretty remarkable. I do wonder if there's any mention of salary in here. Cost of revenue, this is salary and bonus expense for 3 employees for initial advertising. No, that's the only mention of salary in here. I think maybe then Trump might just be paid in stock, but it would be fascinating to see risk related to President Donald Trump. Let's see, Donald Trump. Oh yeah, they include all of the court allegations and fines and elsewhere in here. The jury over Jean Carroll. Oh my gosh, you got so many of the trial and cases and lawsuits over here. My goodness gracious, there's a lot. But we already know about all that. So, okay. So what's worth noting here, though, as you sort of wait for the data this morning on JOLTS, which I was excited about and too early on, is that a few things are happening in the markets right now. So the first thing that we covered is that we've seen this dramatic shift in the betting markets towards Donald Trump. You've seen it not just in Predict It, you've seen it on Polymarket, the crypto-backed betting market odds. You've seen it also now flip in the actual real polling. But you're also seeing it be priced in to Bitcoin, to inflation expectations, to treasury yields, to even, Bitcoin sort of moving in line with gold, Bitcoin moving in line with NVIDIA. This is a really fascinating path that you're on right now. And so far, it seems like the momentum is just pumping these particular plays more and more. Look at, for example, a MicroStrategy. Here's another stock that just essentially doubled from the beginning of November, from around $119 a share to $155 now. It's now sitting at $266. And it really, the more Bitcoin keeps moving up, the more DJT keeps moving up, the more MicroStrategy, which is seen as sort of a leveraged play on Bitcoin, and that, they take out, they issue shares to buy more Bitcoin, they take on debt to buy more Bitcoin. Some people say, oh, but they've got good software as well or otherwise. Okay, maybe, but I see it more of sort of a leveraged Bitcoin play. These are some incredible moves here. There's even now an ETF that gives you 2x leveraged exposure on MicroStrategy, and it's called MSTX. Look at this. This is an ETF that listed at $15. All it does is go 2x MicroStrategy, and it is up to $61 per share right now. This just launched on August 15th. It's pretty close to Lauren's birthday here. So what is that, 2.5 months ago? And this is up, simply put, 4x. So if you put $10,000 into this company, it would be worth $40,000 now. And this is just an ETF here, but it would go into sort of the underlying of MicroStrategy. And you're really getting this flywheel of momentum around the greater odds of Trump. The more you see bond yields go up, the more you're seeing Bitcoin go up, the more you're seeing DJT go up, the more you're seeing inflation expectations go up. And really the question is, as bond yields expand throughout the entire world, is there a risk that you're going to lead the country into a tighter credit environment and potentially restrain us into recession? This is actually one of the downside risk factors that you had J.D. Vance talk about. J.D. Vance was just talking about on Tucker Carlson that, hey, we could end up having this situation where yields go up and they push us into a recession, and you have this debt spiral where you can't grow yourself out of debt because you're in recession. And then you end up destroying a Trump presidency, even if you end up winning. So this is a pretty remarkable and something I think to pay a lot of attention to. But in the short term here, let's just sort of recap some of the things that we've talked about here. We talked about Bitcoin and this incredible trading range that it's now breaking out of. You could zoom out and see this a little bit more clearly. I've been watching Bitcoin for quite a while, and I'll tell you, the explosion over here at the last golden cross was remarkable. Again, you went from about that 35,000 level all the way up to about 70,000. You did consolidate here, but now it looks like you're getting this breakout over here on the right, which just looks like a typical pattern that you'd see in trading. But you've gotten these lower lows, lower highs, consolidation to the downside, and now it really looks like you're breaking up over here. The question is, what happens if Harris wins, which Wall Street is calling sort of a potential surprise right now? Who knows? But the marketeer over here argues that even if Harris does win, you'd still end up with Bitcoin around 75K by the end of the year. Really interesting. But yeah, certainly looks like one heck of a bullish pattern there on Bitcoin. So pretty remarkable. And yeah, hey, if for any reason you are looking for any kind of diversification in your life, check out what we're offering over at househack.com. It's an opportunity to expose yourself to real estate assets in high quality areas, rented out real estate. You get yield and all the upside in the company value as well. So check that out over at househack.com. Read the PPM. This video is not a solicitation. So, okay. So I guess we'll sort of call this our catch up on DJT and Bitcoin. And then we'll get to the Market Open live stream on the Market Open channel in a little bit. But watch this explosion on DJT, and then we'll get back with some of the updates on the jobs and JOLTS report later. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you in the next one.